Hey, everybody. Welcome into the inaugural episode of the JB and Steel Show. Literally just decided on that name 20 seconds ago because we thought it rolled off of the tongue really well. Let us know what you think in the comments. But in this one, we're going to be giving you all the latest from the NHL, MLB, some basketball stuff mixed in since that'll be the fourth topic on our show since I'm not as big into basketball. And then all the football knowledge you need as we have, of course, a 17-week season this year. So that makes a difference in terms of teams that are still in it. Rather than in past years, they might be considered out of it a little bit quicker. But as we get into this episode, first and foremost, Steel, how are you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. By the way, I do agree. JB and Steel, man, I think that does kind of roll nice, doesn't it?
Yeah,
right?
Do roll pretty good. And then I figured JB's a good one because my middle name's John, but we already have a great JJ here in Philadelphia.
You know what I mean? So you don't want to crowd those J's too much. So,
yeah.
But hey, man, look, this is Pro Joe, guys. All right. If y'all don't know, this is Professor Joe. He's the main man, pots and pans, when it comes to all thing Reading Royals. He's the main man, pots and pans, when it comes to anything coming out of Flyers nitty gritty. When it's dealing with the AHL or the ECHL, you got to be following this guy, covering this guy, and being with this guy, man. This is how it is. We don't call him the professor because he doesn't know anything. Come on. So thanks very much for having me on here. I can't wait to get this rolling. We got a lot of stuff to get into, man. So let's just get Johnny right on the spot and get into it. All right?
Yep.
All right. So I think we're going to cover the NHL first, since that's probably our foremost topic. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, where the thing we figured we would start on is who is the top team in the league and why we think they are at the league. And then a fun fact for people that are from my local area, the Phantoms and Reading Royals just so happened to play the same affiliates teams in Toronto's on the same weekend. Just an interesting tidbit there. Phantoms played the Marlies, lost in overtime. Guess what Reading did?
I saw that, yeah.
Lost in overtime to the Newfoundland Growlers. So,
I saw that. I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, so it was the same exact result for the same exact affiliation.
Right.
But I bring that up to say Toronto's played 20 games in the NHL this season. They are 13-6-1, and in their last 10, they are 8-2, really killing it, with their next opponent being the LA Kings. So, Steel, I think a big reason for this team being so successful is we know they're always good in the regular season because they run a very aggressive style, they want to put the score up on you and run a very aggressive offense. They're not always, even down below with the Marlies and Growlers, they're not always the most sexy defensive teams in Toronto's system because they seem to be a push-the-pace team. But that's usually what costs them sometimes in the postseason. But what do you think of what they're doing in the regular season this far?
So I really like what Toronto has been doing. They are one of the up-and-coming teams so far this year. I would also have to put like Edmonton in that same group. I would even put Calgary in there as well, too. So you have to look at some of the Canadian teams this year that are now back in their regular divisions. Okay, and I think that has really been a good move for Toronto, because now they're getting tested not just offensively, but defensively. And one of the other biggest things, too, that I think has been a major factor in what's going on in Toronto is the play of their goaltender.
Campbell, yeah.
He has been playing. I mean, seriously, they were not expecting him to be playing this well, and he really is just lighting it up there, okay? And I'm also going to say, too, that Toronto's defense, which has significantly let them down in the playoffs in the past, and also even to an extent in the regular season as well, because, you know, they were winning kind of those high-scoring games. Like, you're not going to go into Toronto and grind out a 2-1 win, right? Because that's just not Toronto's game. You're not going to grind it out. You know, you're going to run and gun with them.
Yeah, 9 out of 10, you're going to have to run and gun unless if you really keep them to the outside and you have one of those scenarios, you just play a very good game that you keep the shots to the outside.
Exactly. And there's been some teams that have been able to do that this year, but not very many. and they have the offensive firepower to back it up as well with the Austin Matthews. And I love what Wayne Simmons has been able to chip in with as well, too. You're getting contributions from all over the place up there in Toronto. And it's been quite impressive, to be honest with you, because look, they had a monumental failure in the playoffs last year. Okay. Yeah. Seriously. It doesn't get any more monumental and failure than that. Right. Seriously, you drop that many games to Montreal and get choked out in the first round again. This year they made some changes. This year they made some adjustments. I think this team is a much better and more improved team than it was last year. And in fact, I think this team is one of the more dangerous teams in the NHL right now.
Yeah, no, I think this year, obviously what I talked about when it comes to their defense not always being as sexy as their offense, that was more in years past, which is what usually cost them. But the other thing that cost them in the playoffs in years past was, as Peter Laviolette would say, you didn't necessarily have enough jam in your bottom six. So
that's a good way to put it. Oh, I like it.
You didn't have enough spunk in your bottom six where you were getting it all from Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander, where people I know in Peerless have sometimes come at Nick Ritchie because he's not producing point-wise whatsoever. But that's because he's kind of adjusted his game, realizing he's not what he thought he was going to be, I think, when he first came in the league, as good of the net front presence as we've seen some other guys. Yeah. Like even a smaller guy in Pavelski or Mike Knuble, who we obviously loved in Flyers land, be their entire career. He's a guy that's now adjusting and using his body more on the defensive side and using his body more to cause turnovers and forechecking, et cetera. So I feel like, yes, you would think Nick Ritchie would have more than 3 points at this stature of the season, but because he's doing that other stuff, I wouldn't hold it against him too much. And he's also not on the power play in Toronto as much as he was on past teams he's been on, so that's going to affect his point total.
And it's also going to affect his ice time too, because obviously if you're getting power play time, that's that bumps your ice time up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Usually bumps your production up, especially if you're on a talented team that has people like Toronto.
Right, exactly. You know what I mean. And so, but yeah, look, Toronto is just finding a way to get it done. Okay.
Yeah, well, they picked smarter pickups this year, though, too, because one guy we have to shout out is he was injured all of last season practically. Andre Kasia looks like he's back to being a good mix-in piece to a team, which is exactly what he was his entire NHL career since he's been drafted from Anaheim in the 7th round and worked his way up to being an actually productive bottom sixer. He's always been that fit into the puzzle guy. He's never going to be a guy you want to have as one of your top of your team. But he does fit into the puzzle.
I'll tell you what, speaking of like some of the top teams, look, you have to mention, you obviously have to mention the Floridas, the Carolinas. I mean, good gravy. I mean, they've lost this many games. Okay. Right. Both of those teams and one hand, counting on one hand. Okay. So you gotta, without mentioning, you got to talk about the Carolinas and the Floridas, and those teams are going without saying right now because they are starting to separate themselves as the cream of the crop now, right? So that's the teams to beat now. That's the stick to get to. That's the measure. Okay.
Well, oddly enough, for both Florida teams, guess who their next game is? Us. Tampa's us. And Florida is us. So Flyers will have a good test soon. And I also saw Kyle Filippi, or however you pronounce his name, he tweeted out how they're playing teams that I think it's like a total of like 6 losses or something in the next couple of weeks. So they're playing the NHL's top of the echelon.
Have been, I think.
They have been. They have been in a sense, but this year I don't consider, like when you play Boston this year, I haven't considered Boston as much of a top echelon.
Okay, but we've played Tampa Bay. We've already played Calgary twice. We've already, you know what I mean?
It'll make more sense if I just find what he actually said. But no, I agree with my one thing I was going to say though about Toronto is My only concern for them going forward is Jack Campbell's only issue in his career. It's never been talent. It's always been durability, where Peter is out now. Mrazek got injured again. You took a gamble getting a guy that gets injured as the backup to a guy that also has had durability issues. Now you have Joseph Wall, who's a solid, decent young. He's actually looked better in the NHL. He's one of those weird examples. He wasn't looking that with the Marlies, and he's looked pretty good in 2 games in the NHL with, I think it's like a .917 save percentage in 2 games, something in the 19s. I remember seeing. So that's not bad, but you aren't going to overtax a young guy that's not 100% ready, I don't think, to be a backup that plays a lot of games. So I feel like if Mrazek is still out for a while, I have no concern with Campbell. I just want to make sure we're protecting him the most and getting him somebody that he doesn't have to be taxed by the postseason. And then that causes you to basically be out of it just because your goaltender's dead and can barely move side to side.
Yeah, right.
Played him 75 freaking games.
Yeah, that's never fun or good.
That's why you need to figure it out. But this is the tweet I was thinking of. The Flyers next week will consist of teams with a 36-8-6 combined record.
Yeah, buddy, that's a test for you. What do you think?
Yeah, so that's more what I was saying. Like, we've been playing really good teams, but you're in this next week playing who everybody would consider probably the cup contending teams, not just very good teams.
Right. You know, and I think some of the other teams too that have been really making names for themselves this year has been Anaheim. I mean, they had that winning streak.
Surprise teams, yeah, definitely.
Right. LA was on a really nice, the Kings were on a really nice run there too. They had a nice winning streak rolling there too. How about them Flames? With Markstrom, five shutouts so far this season. We're only 15 games in.
No, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Jacob Markstrom, we talked about it on Pirlo's show, but if you called the Vezina right now, it would go to absolutely nobody else but Jacob Markstrom. He would easily be winning the Vezina. And then, of course, what you put on the outline as well this week, which is smart to add, Johnny Gaudreau playing for a big contract, obviously, coming into the final year, probably not with Calgary, but a big contract somewhere coming into the final year of his contract. And he's playing some really good hockey at 22 points, 8 goals, 14 assists in 22 games, shot it about 850 times when he played us. And he usually is more of a passer than a shooter. But he's back to being the old Johnny. And he started doing this. People have to remember, and I know Flame fans do, but not necessarily full league fans. He started doing better last year once the whole fluff got over everybody's head of the media saying, oh, he just wants to be out of Calgary. He doesn't care about Calgary. If you look at his numbers during last season as it progressed, he started turning into the regular Johnny Gaudreau then, and then really has just turned it back to being who everyone knew and loved when he first came in fully now.
Yeah, when I think it happened when the coaching change took place. Sutter.
That makes sense. But Daryl Sutter is a different coach.
When you bring a guy like that in to be your head coach, and with that core group of players that Calgary has drafted and not won with in the last 5, 6, 7 years, right? Since Johnny's been drafted, right? They drafted that same core group of guys that have been there that whole amount of time, and they haven't won anything, but they've kept them together. Well, now they finally have a coach there now who is playing these guys and putting them in situations in their winning games. So he's got another year left on his contract, the coach does, after this year. So to be quite honest with you, it would be in the Flames' best interest to offer Johnny a pretty nice, healthy contract for him to stay there, because I have a feeling that as long as the Flames continue to do what they're doing, that you're going to look at either Sutter being renewed, or, you know what I mean? And I don't know. I just think maybe he might want to stay there and be a part of that since he started there. Then again, he really wants to come back home and play in his hometown. But I just don't think that Philadelphia is going to be able to offer him enough to come and play in
Yeah,
Philadelphia.
well, both of our teams are not in a good if you look at the Flames and the Flyers, both of them have one other people to worry about on top of like Claude Giroux, for example, on
Right.
top of being able to bring in Johnny Gaudreau, where the Flames have Kachuk is also a RFA, obviously, in 2022. So you're going to have to I have a feeling you're not going to want to lose Matthew Kachuk. So I feel like that's why I feel like the Flames are basically just out of the run. Where the Flyers, a guy that fits into the Nick Ritchie category now, not because he was before this guy was one of the better scorers in the league and one of the better net front presence in James Van Riemsdyk. Now as he's got older and hasn't been as quick, has adjusted his game. He still scores a little bit, but he plays a better overall game than he ever has now. And he's still, if teams look like that, and Darryl Sutter likes guys like that. When he was on the Kings, he had guys that were not the sexiest output guys that fans would complain about, but it was guys that fit into the team, like the Lewises of the world. All those guys that fit into the team really good and got it done for him. So, or the Matt Collins, he didn't have him, but like the Collins of the world, just the guys that always fit into the team, the Fishers, Mike Fisher, all those guys that just play those types of games. That's kind of what Nick Ritchie is and what JVR has kind of turned into, but still can be that goal scorer if you put him in the right spot. Where I feel like if you wanted to, if they did like a thing where they like sign him for 1 year so they can get something for him, and then we have JVR only has, I think the next year would be left, or just that year, you basically trading this more money for Johnny, obviously, but you would be getting rid of a lot of cap for JVR if you do that. Or I think if they don't do a sign and trade the Flames, the Flyers will just potentially move on from Van Riemsdyk for picks or something like that.
Yeah, that's going to be the other problem there with Philadelphia, because you're looking at a big ugly contract like JVR that's sucking up a lot of money for Philadelphia, and then you also have to look at the fact that Giroux is going to be a free agent this coming year too, and they're also going to need to sign him back a goaltender, and so there's a lot of stuff going on.
I feel like if you ask G, will you take 7? Like if he keeps producing like this, he's not going to move down to what we thought he was going to, which is more like 5 to 6. But if you ask Giroux, will you take 7 on the dot, because we're going to also, Johnny's talked about wanting to play it back at home, and it looked like he really wanted to play back at home when he played us, because he broke his shots record by a landslide. It was like he was auditioning for the team basically the next season. He
had 9 shots on goal.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think if you put it to G, like, we need to have another dude, like a guy that's just considered that dude with you, not guys like we love, like Coots, that are great but do a great two-way game, so they're not going to have as much of an offense output. People do knock Gaudreau because he's more one-dimensional on the offensive side, but he does do a little bit more in Sutter's system with the defense, and he's starting to buy into that a little bit more this year. But the other side is the Flyers don't necessarily need another guy that does a 200-foot game. We have 8 million of those people, and we just developed Morgan Frost into somebody that now plays a 200-foot game with the offensive talent he has, and he should be called up soon. I agree with Jamie with how well he's doing for the Phantoms. But the point is there, Johnny Gaudreau would fit in perfectly to people that say he wouldn't, because we don't need another 200. The Flyers need another guy that can just be with Giroux, that's the guy that can point produce. Yeah, that can just shoot the puck, and also not just shoot the puck, but Gaudreau's one of the best sightline passers, and by that I mean he can get it, just like Austin Matthews, for example, get it on your tape. Or Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, get it on your tape through 2 people. And you're going to be like, how the hell did he get that through? There's 2 of the bigger defenders standing in his way. How did he saucer that through them? So, like, that's why he's a good addition. He would be perfect on a line with Cam, honestly, because you have speed on both ends. And then imagine G in the middle if you do that, or you put Coots in the middle with Cam.
Yeah, you have to put Coots in the middle, because you're not going to see G in the middle anymore.
I don't know if you will because of his hands, but if he wanted to, that line might convince him to play.
Oh, maybe. Good gravy, that would be. Oh my. Anyway, we can dream, right?
Yeah, we can dream. But anyway, let's get back to we were talking about how the Flames also, to wrap up on the Flames before we go to the Florida teams. It's exactly what you said. The coaching philosophy of Darryl Sutter Last year, of course, he came in when the firing happened, but you can't implement a system. Where then you have an off season to actually coach these guys, give them the tape, and like give them whatever stuff you want to say. This is how I run the show compared to how our former coach ran the show. And now you actually see his system, and you see it come to fruition just like it did in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like they're actually doing really solid and all buying in to the system.
Yeah.
Even Johnny Gaudreau, speaking of the media with Johnny Gaudreau, talked about how he might not really like Daryl Sutter that much. Well, with his point production, that at least doesn't seem the case. I don't know about personally, but with his point production, that definitely does not seem like the case.
Heck of a way to hide it there, Johnny.
Yeah, that's right? A good way to hide that you don't like your coach if you're one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, right.
But as we move on to the two Florida teams, as we can kind of put them into a can together since they're both in Florida, the Panthers are on the 3-game win streak, are 5-2-3 in their last 10. The Lightning only have won 1 in a row after getting a loss, but they're still 7-1-2, kicking butt in their last 10. The Panthers, the biggest thing for this team is Sergei Bobrovsky started rebounding last year and then now has turned back into John Tortorella's Sergei Bobrovsky. So that's kind of that plays a huge part. That's what we all say with the Panthers. They had everything. Now they have Spencer Knight too, who's a young goalie, but they have every aspect. Like if you look at their line, they have a good, at least I would say even a pretty good 4 lines, because you have Luosterainen, Hornquist, for God's sakes, on your 4th line, who's a very good veteran, and then Ryan Lundberg, who's a solid young player, and you have 9, 6, and 3 points from your 4th line. That's pretty solid. You have space.
That's one of the best 4th lines in hockey right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And their defense also, they made right moves. Brandon Montour's having a heck of a season for them that they brought over. He was a guy I wrote an article about last year, maybe Flyers should have interest in. Now it turns out we might need him since Ellis was injured, but we wouldn't have needed him with the moves we made originally. But he's having a good season. Yeah, Connaughton is good. Former Flyer Ratko Gudas continues to do his thing. So you have a pretty good defense playing down there in front of Bob. But the key to this team is just Bob, 937, 8-0 with a 2 goals against. Oh, and then by the way, just because Spencer Knight's 8, 298, 904, and 5-2. So he's not even doing bad either. It's just Bobrovsky's also in the top 5, likely for the Vezina if you ended the Vezina voting. Right now. So that's the difference for me, because that's what's going to get them to the Cup. Having Bob be Bob is what's going to get them to the Cup. They'll get deep in the playoffs like we've seen before, or have a good playoff stretch like we've seen before with someone else stepping up or Bob playing well enough. But to win, they need him to play like that. Not that good, because that's like Hasek level, but they need him to play like we've seen Bobrovsky play before.
Exactly. And, we even talked about this last year about this team in Florida, with Huberdeau and DeClaire taking care of the offense and with Eklund being back as well, because they missed him for most of the year last year. He was down with an injury for most of the year last year, and having him back as well. So, and then, of course, Bob playing like Bob. I mean, that's all they really needed, was him to just play like he should be playing. Like the $10 million a year guy that they signed for him to be playing like, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So he's kind of earning his money now. So it's not
you meant Barkov when you said Eklund, right? I think. Did you mean Barkov when you said Eklund? Or
was Eklund out last year for Florida? He was injured.
Well, Eklund.
Barkov is out this year.
Yeah, I didn't think he was out, because what Eklund are we talking about? I don't even remember what Eklund's on the Panthers.
I thought there was a defensive guy on the Panthers, Eklund, that he was one of their best defensemen that was injured last year, out injured.
There's Uyghur, Ekblad. You mean Aaron Ekblad?
That's it. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I said his name wrong.
Aaron Ekblad. No, okay. No, I was thinking I thought you were meaning a forward, so I was like, what? Because William Eklund's now with the Panthers.
No. But he was out last year.
Yeah, he was out last year. Yeah, I just had.
And now he's back this year, right? So now, what's his name? Ekblad?
Yeah, Aaron Ekblad. Yeah, and he is doing 18 games, 5 points plus 15 points. Excuse me.
So what did I call him?
Plus 17. Eklund, which confused me.
All right. I'm sorry.
Eklund, and William Eklund's a very good prospect forward. Yeah.
Okay. No, I meant to say Ekblad. I'm sorry.
That's why I was like, William Eklund show up on the
right.
But we got it now.
Man. Hey, look, that's why we do this stuff, man. So we make sure we get it right. So my bad. I called him the wrong name. It's Ekblad. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. But he was out injured most of last year, which I think really affected them when they got into the playoffs, because he wasn't even back for the playoffs. You know what I mean?
I think that did really affect them. And then when it comes to the next team, we'll just roll this one past us because of the Tampa Bay Lightning, the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion. If the Tampa Bay Lightning keep doing exactly what they've been doing for the last 2.5 years, they will have another good playoff run again. They're producing. Yes, they lost some people, like people said, this offseason compared to before when they kept the team together. But they didn't lose people to the degree of when Chicago lost people after their one cup run and then kind of had to really get it back. And then even so, they won again a couple of years later. So, they have people that they kept the guys like Killorn. You kept, obviously, guys. Well, you got rid of Barry Boulet on waivers, then got him back. So you were able to get him, which was huge for them because he's now playing some first-line moments for them. So you were able to claim a guy back that I don't think you really wanted to lose in the first place. But this team, just like the Panthers, they're playing a pretty good 4-line game. Not as much point production as the Panthers from their bottom. Guys having nobody that stands out with like 8 or 9 points. But that's because Maroon, Perry, Tkachuk, and Radish and Colton, they all just play that very typical bottom 2 lines game that's going to piss off the other team.
Yeah, buddy.
Players, effectively cut off the passes, all that type of stuff.
Now, Florida or Tampa Bay now is dealing with their issues as well now too. Point is out indefinitely. Kucherov is out until playoffs, maybe, whatever. Right? Nobody knows when he's going to be out because he's out indefinitely as well too. So, but what they lost in the offseason was their depth and their entire fourth line. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you can lose those guys and replace them with much younger guys and still be able to potentially, they're still doing it. But they kept the core guys, the Maroons, the Coltons, the Points, all the other guys. Look, Stamkos is starting to come back on fire as well too. You know what I mean? And having him back fully healthy at the beginning of the season has been very helpful for Tampa Bay as well too. So looking for Tampa Bay to still, look, every season has its up and down, and you're going to win some games and you're going to lose some games. You know what I mean? And so. But in the end, I think Tampa Bay is going to be there in the end.
Yeah, because even with their injuries, like Pierre-Edouard Bellemare at 36 probably shouldn't be playing your third line, but he plays a good enough game to fill in the role for a period of time. Yeah, and then if Point is out for a longer stretch, I could see them picking up someone that fits into how we mentioned the Colins and Fishers of the world, the current crop of players that fits into just that does everything right. You never have to worry about them category, which is what Bellemare fits into. But you might be able to get somebody that has a little bit more of an offensive output on your third line center and then have him play fourth again.
Roger that. I'm with you on that for sure. So one other thing here I want to cover with the NHL, and then we'll move into the pigskin, is that the Senators now have returned back to practice. After their little COVID pause, they've had a significant number of players that were missing. They had 10 players out, and they postponed a couple of games over the weekend. They've now been 5 days now where those players have been able to. Some of those players have been able to start to come back, and now the Senators now have returned to practice. So hopefully that means that games will be back on now with Senators. So that to me is always good news. And I wanted to at least mention that before we moved on.
Yeah, well, also we probably should mention too that the Nathan MacKinnon, like you said, might play on the next trip, which would be obviously huge for Colorado if they get him back. Even though, again, similarly to Tampa, Colorado seems to be a team that even when Nathan MacKinnon goes out, they still kind of figure it out. They're still a +10 on the season. And in their last 10 games, I know they're still doing pretty good. It's 7-2-1. Yeah, so like they're a team again. They have with Bednar, they always have had that next man up mentality, and that's what it always makes the best contenders. The best contenders are the teams that can figure it out no matter what. Now, obviously, if you have 6 key injuries or 6 key guys out on COVID, that's just a completely different story. But you can make up for having a couple guys out, and you can pick up the slack. That's why the Lightning, Braden Point's one of the best players in the league. So is Kucherov. But we saw them pick it up without Kucherov last year. He came back and played amazing in the playoffs. He's going to do the same again this year, probably.
Yeah,
and then so with Point, that's indefinitely, so I have to see if that's to them, but I would assume he'll at least be back again by the postseason, the same as Kucherov, unless it's a really long injury. So you would at least have them, if you get there, come back, and that changes the whole dynamic.
Exactly.
When then they come in and really add a lot to the team.
I'm with you on that for sure, man. A lot of stuff going on in the NHL. We're just about at that quarter mark, so we'll have lots more stuff to talk about in the NHL, though, for sure. But we got a Monday nighter coming up tonight.
Oh,
and then,
we forgot to mention Fleury, who's been struggling this year. Since I am a big goaltender guy, I figured I'll get that one in here before we move on. Marc-Andre Fleury, who's been struggling this year, not due to all the fault of his own. Chicago plays like a dumpster fire in front of him sometimes. But he was able to get his first shutout of the season, which was nice to see for him. And finally, nice to see for the fans, since they're going through a lot of crap right now. So.
Exactly. And we also have to shout out to the Seattle Kraken for beating the Capitals the other night. Like, all right. Every once in a while, you get lucky.
Yeah,
right?
That's sports for you. You can catch it. You can catch a good game every now and then. And then also another thing, Ryan Hartman, former guy that Philly fans will know, was fined the highest possible penalty by the league, which is rightfully so, for a slew-foot, because a slew-foot is nothing you want to mess around with. There was an ugly one down in the when I was covering one of the games for Nitty Gritty, and that guy also was suspended. So it's something you don't want to mess with.
Yeah, that can really hurt somebody too, you know what I mean, for sure. And you don't want to be doing that kind of stuff. And it's good that the league is stepping up to suspend or fine or whatever they need to do in order to try to prevent those kinds of things, because it's just a malicious act. Okay, it's not. There's very few accidental slew-foots out there.
Yeah. In order to do that accidentally, you literally have to basically fall. Like, you have to be trying to go up against the guy and be wiping out yourself almost. You accidentally. Yeah.
So there's no accidental slew-foots.
Yeah.
So no accidental slew-foots. All right. So, but with that being said, we're gonna jump into some of the NFL here, and I'll tell you what. This NFL season has been a lot more exciting than I was anticipating. Like, almost like the NHL season has been a lot more exciting than I was initially anticipating, because I thought the NHL was going to be a little bit kind of have the hangover of COVID and everything, and the shortened season last year and all that. And then I kind of felt the same thing with football. But man, I'll tell you what, everything has just kind of come out of the gates flying. You know what I mean?
And same as hockey, you have teams that really have come out and impressed early on. Like, even though they're 6-4 now, the Bengals still have a chance if the Ravens don't do their thing to be there. And your Steelers at 5-4, even through the injuries and issues that team has had on the field and not calling the right game each game all the time, they still have a chance there as well, which my Eagles fit right into that category of not calling the right game all the time. Not necessarily. Well, the Eagles fit more into if they can go on a good run with the third easiest schedule, they can probably make the wild card. They're going to need a lot from Dallas at 7-, them being 5-6, to be able to make that up, unless if they, of course, beat Dallas, and then that would change different things, because if Dallas starts sucking and the Eagles beat them in their game, that changes everything. But I don't see them sweeping Dallas. So I would say that would go more into the, you have an easy schedule, like NFL writers have been writing about. Don't be shocked if the Eagles end up making a wild card, but that's I'm not ready to commit to it yet, but that's the deepest I think to get to.
Okay. All right. I haven't had the privilege of watching a full entire Eagles game yet this season. I've been watching a lot of other football games and watching a lot of hockey games, and unfortunately I haven't watched an Eagles game. But I always listen to my man Derek Gunn, man, because he always got the information going. It's one of the few that I listen to, and he's always got the right information. And so anything I need to know about them, I just check him out, or I check you out too, you know. Exactly. You know what I mean? So, but what I've been really impressed with so far in the season so far is Arizona, the play of Arizona. Coming out and being one of the last undefeated teams, and now they're, they've only lost 2 games, and it doesn't even matter if Kyler Murray is in or not. They'll just have McCoy just go out there and do what did he do, like a 36 of 41.
Oh
game. Yeah, right, like almost a perfect game from a guy who hasn't seen the field and. How
I'm
long?
pulling it up. Hold on. I'm pulling up his game log.
Yeah,
he
was sick.
On the 20th versus KC. We're talking about the KC game or the Dallas game? Because on the 20th, when they lost 17 to
just the one on Sunday.
Okay. Yeah, when they lost 17 to 10, it wasn't really, he game managed fine. He had 1 interception, but 13 of 18, 113. You can't expect a heck of a lot from a guy that's been sitting on his hands, and everybody knows he is what he is. He's a game manager that's going to get you.
Okay, so
keep you in the game and basically.
The game on the 21st.
Do that.
Our crack research staff. The game on the 21st. What was his stats on the 21st?
It has it as, let's see. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I read the wrong thing. Here we go. November 21st. Yeah, he did do really good then. He did okay against Carolina the first game he was in.
Yeah.
11-20-107. Then he did 35 of 44, 328, 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, that's against Seattle, who's, of course, struggling this year, but that's still a good game. Yeah, I apologize. I read the old thing.
Oh, no. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, that's actually a lot better than you would expect from Colt. Colt McCoy, you usually expect to have the 110 to 150 manage the game. That's kind of, you get what you get from him. But in that game, he
not that game.
played like the guy that got drafted by Cleveland. Yeah, Cleveland so many years ago. To be able to, it's hard to remember all those guys that got drafted by Cleveland to try to be their quarterback. But he was one of those.
Some of them are still in football.
Yeah, one of those many people. He's still actually in the game. Not a lot of those other guys can say that, but yeah, he's still.
Like Brady Quinn is now doing. He's doing college football.
Yeah.
He's doing the desk for college football. I'm like, wow, all right. And so, hey, okay, whatever. But
the Cards got helped out by the fact that the Rams, this is their bye week, I believe, but they had the 15th, they lost to the 49ers. I think that was Odell's first game, or one of his first games. And then the Titans.
Last Sunday was his first game.
Okay, yeah. And they just didn't play well at all in his game whatsoever. And then they lost 28-16 against, yes, a good Titans team, but if you're the Rams, you should not be losing 28. You're supposed to be one of the better teams also. That's why you're 7-3. So the Rams going on a 2-game losing streak, and the fact that Colt McCoy picked it up for the Cardinals, that's really is what's making them sit pretty right now, where obviously if Colt lost that game, they would then be at 8-3 to 7-3 of the Rams. That wouldn't be in as good of a spot, especially because the Rams, even though they're not playing good of late, we just need to make up 1. And so that's not hard to do, even if you just find a couple good weeks. And we know the Rams have the ability to do that. It just seems like they're trying to integrate Odell into the offense. They did terrible on last Sunday, because they were off this week. And then they were a team that just didn't do good against the Titans, and that's what cost them in terms of their standings. But obviously, they're still in an okay spot when it comes to wild card standings. But in terms of on the flip side, a team that's gone opposite of I think what we expect have you because of an injury to their quarterback is the Seahawks. I don't think anybody with the ability of Russell Wilson expected him to go down and out for that long, that it would really affect their overall season, because we haven't seen it in the past. But at the same time, this dude's been one of the guys getting whacked the most every single year consistently, that eventually it adds up. It adds up.
I'd agree with you on that,
which is a longer injury. And it's really on the Seahawks, in my opinion, and their management for not fixing things around their quarterback. That is why they aren't able to be good this year. Because in past years, they just kept riding because they knew he would get it done any way, shape, or form. They could have put bricks for hands on the field.
Pretty much.
They still would have found a way to get it done if they put Dorial Green Beckham, who when he was here with the Eagles couldn't catch a damn thing if you threw it right at him. So, like, that's why I feel like their team is just a team that runs all through relying on him, and that doesn't work for being an ultimate contender. When they were an ultimate contender, they had a well-rounded team.
No, I'm with you. You know, what's really funny, though, is that you look around and the Rams at 7-3 could be the head of a couple of the other divisions.
Yeah, the other divisions, yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're second next to the Cardinals, you know what I mean? And then, you know, I was also a little bit taken aback, too, by the fact that Carolina brought Cam Newton back. He signed a 1-year, $10 million deal. And, boy, he looked really good. I mean, he came out and he was ready to play, man. He looked really good. He never wanted to leave Carolina.
Yeah, and he was leading the huddle a lot of the time, too, on the sideline, even though Walker was getting a few more reps than he got in the game 14th again, when he first came over. He was leading the huddle on the sideline. And then, of course, this week against the Washington football team, he had 189 and 2 touchdowns and only got sacked once. So they did a pretty good job at actually protecting their quarterback, too, which has been a problem for the Panthers at times. So that game, they particularly did a solid job.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that pretty much spells the end of Sam Darnold there, I believe, in Carolina. I mean, if they bring Newton back for 1 year, $10 million, I mean, I don't know that.
Yeah. Well, Darnold is injured with the shoulder, obviously. Well, that's the only reason they brought Cam back. Otherwise, if he was out for a shorter time, I feel like they would have just kept rolling with PJ Walker at that point, because Rule has familiarity with him from Temple and all that. So,
you know, all right, I could go with that.
But it all depends how if Cam starts playing like that more and starts slowly looking like the older version of himself, you already know more what you have in Cam Newton already. He was he was an MVP, he was a league MVP. He was a guy that can still skate a little bit and then also has a cannon like Michael Vick did, basically. But the difference is he ain't a twig. Michael Vick wasn't obviously the most buff individual, but had a cannon and could run like the wind. Cam Newton can run really well, has a cannon, but can also hit you like Jerome Bettis if he feels like it when you're trying to tackle him.
Well, he doesn't want to be doing that anymore. I'm with you, because he's a much larger gentleman. You know, yeah, I'm with you on that, because he's a much larger guy, but he doesn't want to be doing that anymore. And, you know, what's really funny is that you look at these running quarterbacks don't age well. You know what I mean? They get their window, and then they either take too many shots and they can't run anymore. And a lot of them never were able to develop enough of a passing skill to continue on. You know what I mean? And I think Cam was one of those first quarterbacks that was able to kind of throw the ball a little bit better for the most part, and was still able to run the ball. You know, he got better with Norv Turner came in and really helped him throw the ball much better and improved his. I mean, they took him to the Super Bowl. I mean, all you have to do is just look at that, and that it took them to the Super Bowl with
now you have Murray, who can obviously run and pass with the best of them. We talked about Arizona already. He can run whenever has to, and Kyler can also get it down the field with the best of them at the same time.
And you even got to put Lamar Jackson in there too.
Yeah, he's a better passer than people give him credit for.
Yeah, just not only is he a really good runner and has good vision and can see the field, but he's also a pretty good passer. You know what I mean? And he was a good passer even in college too. I mean, it's your decision making is kind of what it comes down to sometimes. You know what I mean? And so Lamar is still young.
Yeah, when you don't pass as much like we saw in his first couple seasons, sometimes he would make the wrong read. It's not that he couldn't. That's, I think, what people get locked up on.
Yeah.
If a quarterback makes the wrong read and it looks like a bad pass, they say that he can't pass.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what you said. He can pass just fine. He just needs to make the right read. Like, for example, we saw that going back to the Eagles real quick this weekend and the last couple of weeks, as Nick Sirianni's been integrating the running game more, all of a sudden Jalen Hurts also looks like a more confident passer. It's funny how that works, that when you don't throw all the pressure on a guy that's in his first season, he actually looks a little bit better out there. But he went 13 of 24, 147. He did get sacked 3 times, but he Hurts like you expect him to be more the manager guy or that gets you through the game and is able to put out a win for your team, which is exactly what he did. And then on top of that, his rushing yards, we're at almost 70 rushing yards again, and he had 3 rushing TDs, so he was the MVP of your running game in that game. So he's a guy that figures it out. But because of that, he kind of fits. He just doesn't have the strong arm. So when you don't have the strong arm and you're more the accurate guy and you make some of the wrong reads, people are really going to then knock you for not being a good passer.
Exactly.
And Cam and guys like that, they have a cannon, so you can go to that even if people start knocking their passing. Where Hurts not a good deep thrower. He's more of just a guy that manages it and makes the right read, and then you're good, which he did all the time for the most part on Sunday when he made the right read to run and then scored 3 touchdowns, which is why his passing numbers were not. Yeah, they could have been.
So no, I'm with you. And one of the other teams too that is not really getting that much love too. It's another AFC North team, which, hey, go figure, the AFC North being one of the toughest divisions out there. Them Cincinnati Bengals, man, they're no joke neither. You know what I mean? That Joe Burrow.
When you have that's what I was going to say, what you said. When you have Joe Burrow as your quarterback, who since coming into the league has looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And also, let me look this year. He's still been sacked 28 times. So you might still want to fix that. But he's somebody that's playing really well still. 101.6 rating, 68.3. The only concern when it comes to the Bengals and Joe Burrow is keeping him on the field because your line sucks and you're still letting him get sacked too many times. But he does have it does seem like Burrow, because of that, took this offseason, if you watch him, to kind of think a little bit more like Romo did during his career, where if you remember when Dallas had just injuries on their O-line or was not as consistent, Romo was always considered, when you looked at the stat of catch and throw it, like whatever that's called, like release rate or whatever it is.
Yeah, the release time.
Release time. He was always one of the quickest on his release time, where he would literally just say hike and basically like make the read just like break.
Like if you're under 2 seconds, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like if you're under 2 seconds,
real bad. Yeah, your line would have to be one of the worst of all time if you're under 2 seconds and you still get sacked. Yeah,
I mean, even like we're talking about that, and Ben is one of the leaders in the league. I think he's at like 2.3 seconds for his release time. Okay. So he's one of the leaders in the league right now in that particular category. So I'm very familiar with that release time.
That's also because he has to be, because he's been sacked 21 times. And it's not like, unlike Joe Burrow, who's younger, who's not a runner, but can move a little bit. Big Ben ain't going anywhere. He's like Peyton Manning, basically.
The tree trunk standing back there,
Yeah, he's not moving anywhere.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. Well, Joe, what do you think, man? Dude, we just covered the NHL and the NFL in like an hour.
Yeah.
Right? What do you think?
Did you want to do any baseball and then just cut off?
We can circle back around.
Yeah.
Right, because baseball is in the off season right now, right? So maybe for our next show, right? Maybe we can talk more baseball than we did, because this was just the first show. You know what I mean? And I like this, man. This is good. This is just good topics, just talking back and forth. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Love it. Love it. Yeah, man.
One big thing that did come out in baseball 8 minutes ago that I'll give to people just because it came out when we were doing the show is a guy that stepped up for the Giants this year, and Anthony DeSclafani, signed a 3-year contract with $36 million to stay with Gabe Kapler's the manager of the year's team. Also,
Okay.
that one out there to be with the Giants and stay with his manager. That obviously him and the pitcher. I almost called him Homer Bailey, who's still a guy that's around. Andrew Bailey, their pitching coach, has done a good job at being a young pitcher that's gone through, had to retire young, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And now he's a pitching coach, so he can tell people how to get through stuff and all that. He has very good mentality, it seems, about not just the game, but getting through whatever you're getting through away from the game. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. You know, maybe what we'll do is we'll lead in the next show we'll lead in with a list of who we think of the players, the free agent players for the Major League Baseball. We'll come up with a list, and we'll start talking about the free agents that potentially could be available.
Well, everybody, that's what we'll end up doing for next week's show. Or if you want to record another one this week, I'm available during the day if you are anytime. But we'll do that whenever we do the next show. We'll talk about the key guys that signed already, like going into how Artie Moreno finally smartened up and signed a guy like Noah Syndergaard, the Angels owner and management, rather than keep getting lineups all the time. But we'll go into that and much more, and as well as guys still on the market, and actually talk about a little bit more DeSclafani and others that already got signed. I hope you all enjoyed the first edition of the JB and Steel show as we covered the NFL and NHL for you this week. Both leagues are really, obviously, the NHL getting off to a hot start and the NFL getting to the second half now that there's a 17-week season. We're kind of in the second half now, coming into the end roads here and trying to have teams like the Birds be able to take advantage of their struggling schedule and or their off schedule, I guess, their easy schedule. And then your Steelers being able to kind of keep themselves in contention, because anything can happen when you keep yourself right there, even in a tough division. If anything happens and the Ravens lose a couple, the Bengals, you're not that far behind.
That's right.
Anything can happen. And the Bengals are mostly because of Burrow.
Yeah.
But everybody have a great, safe, and pleasant week. Thank you for watching, and peace out, and stay safe, and enjoy the sports.
How can we get a hold of you, Joe? Where can we find all your great stuff? Where can we get a hold of you, buddy?
Oh, yeah, it's probably a decent thing to tell people. Flyers Nitty Gritty is one spot you can find me, again, like Steel said, for AHL. Some NHL stuff I still write on the Flyers, and then ECHL stuff there. Sports Fanatic News with PH for Fanatic, like hey here in Philly, not the F. Sports Fanatic News is my YouTube, and that is where I'm at now. Those are the two main places that you can find me, as well as obviously here doing stuff for SteelFlyers as well. And then eventually, maybe when we get the site set up, we'll do some writing stuff on there, blog stuff on there for you for that as well.
Sweet deal. And you can follow me at SteelFlyers52 on Twitter. You can also check us out on the web at www.steelflyers.com. Check us out. Hit the like and subscribe. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll catch you all in the next episode of the JB and Steel Show. Thank you all very much.